To me, all I see with this is just a big L for OpenAI, to be honest, because they had the deal, right? Like they literally were in the door.
Apple apparently opened up Siri to third-party AI. So essentially, they've had a deal where it's exclusive with ChatGPT. If you own an iPhone, you've seen it. Annoyingly, does not work that great, right? So it essentially it hands off bigger questions to ChatGPT and just leaves you wondering, like, why don't I just ask ChatGPT or something if we're going to go this route anyway, you know? Typically I do. It also has voice recognition, and then I have voice to text type of software on the phone and the computer, which saves all those requests, as well as it saves it inside of ChatGPT. When you're using Siri, it's like, what's it? Where's it going? Where's it going to go? Where do I say? Where can I look up the requests? Because it doesn't really have that type of system built in. So anyway, anything you think about it in terms of, like, you know, maybe Apple becoming the new home for where you use AI?
To me, all I see with this is just a big L for OpenAI, to be honest, because they had the deal, right? Like they literally were in the door. They let them connect it, and for whatever reason, I don't know if it's Apple's fault or OpenAI's fault, but the performance was awful, right? And it's not just me saying that. Like, it's obviously not just us saying that, or else they wouldn't have felt the need to do this kind of move if this problem was solved, right? Like, Apple's not going to go through the effort of spending thousands of labor hours building an infrastructure where third-party apps can connect to the one thing they've never let anybody have access to, which is Siri, right? Like, Siri has always been fairly selective with what you can do with it, like Spotify and, you know, some of the bigger apps like YouTube and, you know, some of these bigger, like more concentrated apps, they've been able to get some connection to Siri, but even then you have to like unlock your phone for it to, you know, open a playlist on Spotify or, you know, do something else with another app. And so it's always been very kind of block kit. And so now with them opening it up, it's more so like, hey, listen, we're going to give you the voice engine. We're going to give you the neural chip usage, because like that's the big thing with like running voice AI on a device is like the actual generation of the voice has to happen somewhere. And if it can happen on the device, that's way faster than having to have it generated on a server somewhere in the cloud. And then it's got to come back, and then you got to re-tokenize it and then, you know, play the whole thing. If you now have the ability to, you know, just basically sit on top of Siri's whole, you know, neural infrastructure based on the network speed and the device type and your language and all that stuff, and all you got to do is fulfill the request. Now it's, you know, it's a lot easier to actually build Apple integrations for stuff that's, you know, really AI powered. So I see this as a big L for OpenAI ultimately, because Apple's basically saying, hey, we gave you a fair run. We gave you some time. It's not solving the problem still. So we're going to take over and just open it up to the community, do our normal thing of letting the top, you know, performers kind of win, and then buying them or competing with them and flushing them out. Like, it's kind of what Apple's always done, you know. Like it is the Apple way.
Yeah, it's very interesting seeing them open it up to everybody, which includes Google, their big arch nemesis, which is just insane.
Well, hey, listen, Apple didn't get in on the language model game like they wanted to. And I saw a really interesting article about this the other day. Somebody was a VC who was basically saying, you know, Apple doesn't really have to care so much about like ads as Google does, right? Like Google, again, if we go back to the conversation when ChatGPT started getting really famous, it's like the death of the blue link, right? The death of these sponsored results that you would normally see in a Google search, because now you don't need to click through links anymore. It's just, it gives it to you automatically. So Google had to adapt, and they knew they were going to have to fit ads into it somehow. And so one of their biggest things, which remind me, Google also released an ask mode in Google Maps. So you can basically like ask directly in the Google Maps app, where is the best coffee shop in this area that, you know, serves soy milk or is halal or is vegan friendly or whatever. You can just ask that to Google Maps now. And of course, Google Maps has ads, and they have a whole paid ads section. But so now Google is probably going to start still making you pay for the referral that the AI does, rather than like a traditional pay-per-click kind of method. And so Apple doesn't really have to worry about that though. Apple has devices. Like they have devices and they have music and they have storage and they have like they've got their bases covered when it comes to where they're going to generate most of their revenue from. So they don't have to care so much about what they're going to do this year with language model AI and, consumer level AI. They have the luxury of being able to kind of step back and say, okay, our devices still have the most, enclosed, captured market possible out of all the other devices, right? Like, especially in the US, once you're an Apple user, there's a good chance you're going to be an Apple user for a really long time. You're going to buy multiple devices. You're going to link them all together. Your family's going to buy Apple devices. So they really mostly said, how can we make it so that whatever AI wins, whatever language model it is, whether it's Apple's or not, how do we make sure that our device is the one that they run it on and it can perform the best with? And so, again, their first move that nobody really saw coming, nobody expected Apple to go the route of just partnering with OpenAI, because at the time, and this was a couple years ago, so that's ages ago in this freaking technology landscape.
That is crazy.
Like when Apple first, the announcement came out that Apple was just going to license ChatGPT and just, use that as the AI engine for Siri, it was shocking. Like a lot of people were like, whoa, investors kind of freaked out a little bit. I think there was even a little bit of a drop in their stock. Yeah. People were not okay. Like they were like, you're a technology provider. You need to be on the forefront. You have all the training data, blah, blah, blah. But Apple basically said, no, we're going to sit back and we're going to just wait this out and make sure that the devices are safe and private and, reliable and affordable and all the stuff that they want to be able to do for their consumer market. So they're playing a very different game. Google, on the other hand, which just so happens to also own Android on the other side, they are less laser focused on one thing. Like if all Google had was the Android market and the Google Pixel phones and, that was it, then they could do the same thing and not have to worry about being in the language model race. But because they have so many SaaS products that they, depend on, and plus the search ad traffic, they kind of had no choice but to be on the forefront of this model development. You can see the same thing with Samsung, right? Like what else? What does Samsung have? They don't have cloud products. They don't have software as a service. They have devices. They have phones and, they have TVs and dishwashers and stuff like that. And so they're not going to be the ones to worry about what's the fastest, most efficient, best performing language model they can create. But you can bet that they are going to be able to integrate with any kind of AI service and optimize it to run locally on their device so that the user experience overall is really good. So that's what I see with this, is that they are playing the game of being device focused and sticking where they're, where they make their money, and not just being very agnostic about what AI provider is actually ultimately providing the AI service, and just making sure that the device itself can handle it.